In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about improvising on the Phish song, Birds of a Feather. I really like improvising on this one. It's, a good straight-ahead rock and roll tune. It's in a minor key, which, there aren't a ton of Phish jams in minor keys, and so this one's a really fun one to play. The jam is basically in C Dorian. It's over a C minor chord, basically a single chord vamp that calls for the Dorian mode. Now, I should say, first and foremost, this is a rock and roll jam. And to me, when I'm playing rock and roll jams, really that minor pentatonic scale is going to be sort of the classic go-to sound. And honestly, if you analyzed what Trey does over this solo, probably about 80% of it would be really minor pentatonic, with a few notes added in here and there to color it, to give it a little bit of that Dorian flavor. And you might remember that the Dorian mode and the minor pentatonic are very close to each other. Basically, if you take a minor pentatonic scale, which is root, minor third, fourth, fifth, and flatted seventh, and back to the root, if you just added the second note of the scale and the sixth of the scale to that, it gives you the Dorian mode. So there's really just a couple extra notes in there that make it Dorian, but those notes can be really used nicely to add a little extra color to what you're doing. Now, when I'm in the Dorian mode, I really have just a handful of go-to positions on the neck that I go to. The real obvious one, of course, is based off of this like E minor shaped bar chord. So for C minor, that would be here in the 8th position. So that's an obvious choice that works really well. You can also be down here in the 3rd position off of this C minor chord. Really, between those two spots, the 3rd position and the 8th position, you've actually covered a good portion of the neck right there. And off of this 8th position, there's also sort of a little extension of that minor pentatonic scale that happens here in the 11th position. A lot of classic like blues rock licks come out of that shape. So really, between this 3rd position C minor chord, the 8th position C minor chord, and this little sort of extension above that of the pentatonic scale, that covers virtually the entire neck of the guitar. So really, those 3 positions give you plenty to work with. So down in this 3rd position, the couple notes that you have that sort of get to that Dorian sound and away from that pentatonic sound are the D here right on the 3rd fret, 2nd string, and the A above that on the 5th fret of the 1st string. So those are the 2 like color notes that make it Dorian as opposed to pentatonic. And I like to play off of those a bunch when I'm improvising. Those same notes can be found in the 8th position. You've got them, I guess you'd call this the 7th position. Technically, you have to jump out of 8th position to get to them. But the A here on the 7th fret and the D on the 7th fret above that. And then also the A and D on the 10th fret of the top 2 strings. So you add those again to that pentatonic scale and it gives you the Dorian mode. And yeah, like I said, I'll lean on those a bit here and there just to kind of give it more of a Dorian flavor and get out of that straight ahead pentatonic sound. So I'll just play a few licks here over my backing track and I'll show you some of these basic pentatonic ideas and combine them with the Dorian, and then we'll talk a little bit more about a few other ideas after that. So that was all just straight pentatonic right there down in this 3rd position. Now I'll play something a little more Dorian. Go up to the 8th position, do some of my great old rock and roll pentatonic licks here. Bring in some Dorian notes. So like I said, it's nice to get away from that pentatonic sound here and there, for sure. But at the same time, when you want to really go big and go for that rock and roll sound, there's just no substitute for that minor pentatonic scale. Now, in this particular jam, there's one other thing that I like to do, and I hear Trey do this a lot too, which is to hint at the melody. So, the melody, I'm just really thinking of the melody in the chorus of the song, would be... So just going to that melody alone right there gives you something to hang on to in your improvisation. It's a good thing to go to. If you're not sure what to play, just play the melody. It works every time. But then you can also take that phrase and sort of make up some variations of it. And when you make up the variations, you really don't have to worry too much, especially if if you know you're in the Dorian mode and you're playing notes from that Dorian mode. You don't really have to worry too much about whether those notes are right or not. You just play the phrase and think of the phrase like the rhythmic side of the phrase. Da 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 da. So I can play around with that in all kinds of different ways, like... Oops. So when I'm doing all those little phrases, I'm not necessarily worrying about what notes I'm actually playing. I'm just kind of playing them wherever they happen to land under my fingers, as long as they're part of that mode. Here's another one. All of that stuff really works well. You can never go wrong by going back to the melody of the song. And there's one thing I did there also that's a big Treyism, I might as well point it out real quick, which is bending the sixth up to the flatted seven. He'll do this in the Dorian mode. It also works in the Mixolydian mode. So, if I'm hearing this minor pentatonic scale, the sixth is right here on the 10th fret. Just bend that up a half step to the seventh. Trey likes that one a lot. Alright, so I'm going to just improvise a short little solo here and try to bring in some of those ideas that I've been talking about.